Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. If Ripple loses in the lawsuit against the SEC, is there a chance that when the remedies portion comes, that Ripple will be forced to destroy their own XRP, or aka burn their XRP? Well, what's interesting is that regarding a supplemental brief by the SEC as it pertains to the LBRY case, the SEC actually is talking about that concept with the LBRY credit token. So is this something that we could see with XRP? Well, I'm not saying it's impossible for any judge or to declare whatever the hell they want, or for the SEC to push for such a thing, but do I think that's what's most probable or likely? No, and I will explain why. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, and so here's the news shared by attorney James K. Filing on Twitter. He wrote the following. In the LBRY case, the SEC has filed a supplemental brief on remedies requesting a civil penalty of $111,614 and for the court to enjoin LBRY from violating Section 5 of the Securities Act. And look, I'm not an attorney, so I guess this is just kind of par for the course, but it just seems silly as somebody who's not living in that world. You broke the law. Well, that's what the court determined. I'm not saying I agree with the judgment, but that was the finding. You did something illegal, and does it need to be stated literally that you are not allowed to also break the law in the future? Because that's literally what this means. Then join LBRY from violating Section 5 of the Securities Act again. They already broke the law. We're saying, okay, but part of the deal is you're not allowed to do that again in the future. Well, they already weren't allowed to do it if that's the ruling, right? So it just seems silly to me. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe there's a good reason for that. I just don't know what it is. If so, it just seems silly. But take a look at this. So there are a number of things here. XRP community member named Sherry wrote to attorney Filing and said, I'm not surprised the SEC withdrew their request for disgorgement. And by the way, they did. Don't forget what they were initially pulling for. And I can't remember what the final figure was. It was in the millions. But they were looking for millions of dollars in disgorgement from LBRY. So anything that they would have profited from, the SEC wanted that back also. They withdrew that request. And ultimately, you'll see they withdrew that request because LBRY's going out of business and doesn't have the money anyway, so the SEC gave up for that reason specifically. So anyway, Sherry says, I'm not surprised the SEC withdrew their request for disgorgement. LBRY Inc. was completely drained financially. Kaufman told the truth. Very sad. And then somebody else wrote, it is 100% frowny face. And then Sherry also wrote, the most ridiculous of this whole thing is that the SEC is only walking away with $111,614 after having spent millions destroying the company and harming investors. Now, ain't that the truth? And by the way, the SEC spending millions of dollars to make this happen, to get $111,000, that came from the taxpayers. So if you're in the United States, that's you and I that were paying for this whole thing. Don't you feel protected? You feel super duper protected, right? Well, attorney Bill Morgan, a member of the XRP community, also pointed this out, and he said, millions of dollars spent for a fine of $111,614 and a company financially ruined. That helps the world. He's obviously being sarcastic there. And somebody else wrote to him and said, but that feeling of being protected by an agency looking out for you is priceless. Don't you guys feel super protected by all of this, right? Oh, that Kim Jong-un's there. He's just like a warm blanket wrapped around your body. And then attorney Morgan says, LBC, that's why LBRY credit token, of course, LBC is still being sold on exchanges, but at least Americans feel protected from that nasty little security that even the judge and the SEC attorneys conceded has utility. That's right. So LBRY, the company, gone, LBC still trading, still as utility, still being used. So all that destruction happened, but it persists. You know, distributed ledger technology, decentralized cryptocurrency, judge and the SEC agreeing that there's utility there. What was actually accomplished? Who was protected here? Who was saved? And the answer is no one. All this did was harm innovation in the United States. That's what actually happened here. And it's an utter disgrace here. And so XRP community member Stefan Huber retweeted that from attorney Filing also and said, hardest part, quote, to enjoin LBRY from violating Section 5 of the Securities Act, end quote. I'll never get this nonsense ruling. So the judge rules that LBRY is not allowed to violate the law? Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying a minute ago. It's completely ridiculous. Now, David Schwartz jumped in here, and he said the following. Go down to the "it is further ordered" sentence at the end of the part 1 and read clause B, and then you'll understand what's going on here. And the part in yellow is what he's talking about, which reads as follows. It is hereby further ordered, adjudged, and decreed that pursuant to Section 21D5 of the Exchange Act, yada, 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 LBRY is permanently restrained and enjoined from participating directly or indirectly in any unregistered crypto asset securities offering. So they don't want anything else to happen again in the future. So it's not just, what we already cited. And then also, you can see under Section B, it is further ordered, other persons in active concert or in participation with the defendant are anyone described in Section A, which reads defendants, officers, agents, servants, employees, and attorneys. So that's what David Schwartz says that this is all about. Now, what about that escrow, though? Like I was talking at the outset of the video, is Ripple going to be forced to somehow destroy that escrow? And from a technical perspective, maybe there's a way to do it. I'm not some sort of major tech nerd or anything like that, so there are other people in the XRP community that would know a lot more about this than me. But when it comes to the tech side, if XRP is already in escrow, can you somehow destroy the key to? I mean, you could lose a private key for that. But if you can't move the XRP right now, and you can't if it's in escrow, well, how are you going to burn it? Because you need to be able to move it if you're going to burn it, right? That's my understanding. And again, I could be missing something because, again, I admit, raising my hand right here, I admit not the biggest tech nerd here, but maybe there's a way to do that, even though it's in escrow right now. Now, outside of that, I understand you can just send it to an address for which nobody has a key. Like that's a way that's been done before on other blockchains. That might even been what the Stellar Development Foundation did. I'm pulling from memory, so I could be mistaken on that, but I think they might have just sent the XLM that they held that they want to get rid of and burn just to an address that nobody has the key to. So as far as can Ripple even do that? Well, every time it comes out of escrow, then you can do whatever you want with it. So then for sure, but that's over a span of several years because there's rolling escrow contracts basically. But XRP community member JV wrote to David Schwartz and said, "Think that XRP escrow will need to be destroyed too, David?" And the reason I was asking that is because of what's highlighted right here. Here, I'll go to the actual document. So here's what the SEC is telling the judge they want in this latest supplemental brief. So penalty, already talked about that, the $111,000, but they also want the following, quote, an injunction restraining LBRY from violating Section 5 of the Securities Act of 1933 and from conducting unregistered offerings of crypto asset securities at least until, this is the key part, at least until the defendant destroys its LBC holdings and dissolves, as it stated to the court it will do. So think about this. Throughout this entire case in the LBRY, and the same is true for Ripple, at no point has the SEC argued that the reason they're suing either of the entities is due to the quantity of their holdings. That has never been argued. If I'm mistaken, you point out where. I've not seen it. I haven't seen it anywhere. So, the fact that this is being brought up now, I don't know that the SEC would have brought it up if not for the fact that LBRY themselves stated that, hey, we're going to cease to exist and we'll do anything. We'll even hand over our LBC tokens. We don't care. Well, whatever. They ceded that point years ago, by the way. They were telling the SEC that years ago, and the SEC just wasn't having it. They wanted to obliterate them. So the fact that the SEC is mentioning this, it doesn't mean that it was some core part of their strategy from the beginning, not having to do with the quantity of LBC or the fact that they even hold it. It hasn't been articulated if that was part of their strategy. So then we're just in speculation land. So we know, and you can see it based on the way that they wrote it, that they're asking for that because LBRY already made a promise to do that. They said they will do that. Ripple has made no such promise, and they will make no such promise. Ripple has more money than God. And this is a long time ago, last time I saw that Ripple, when Brad Garlinghouse publicly speaking about how much money they have, they had $1 billion in the bank. So they're fine. LBRY has no money. It's all gone. They were a much smaller firm. And Ripple has never said, yeah, we'll just fold up shop. You can have everything. We're done. Ripple's never said anything of the sort. So it's not that the SEC couldn't say, hey, hand over your XRP. That would be out of left field is what I'm saying, because the circumstances in the SEC v. Ripple case are different than what the state of things are in the SEC v. LBRY case. Very different. And so I've seen over the last couple of years, there's been no shortage of people saying, hey, the real reason they're going after this, and you start to get in conspiracy theory land, some of it anyway, not all of it, but some of the comments along those lines get in this conspiracy theory land, like the whole secret motive, and I know this and I believe this to be true, is that, the SEC actually just wants to get Ripple's escrow. That's it. And I've seen XRP YouTubers say stuff like that, and I respectfully disagree. I think that's nonsensical. They haven't articulated that. They haven't done that with any other entity in the past. It's just that hasn't been the goal. They haven't ever, or I've never seen them argue that anywhere else. So if they have outside of the LBRY case and Ripple case, okay, fine, maybe. And it's not like I'm thoroughly read on literally every single case that has happened in the world of crypto. But pretty confident that has happened with Ripple or LBRY ever. So are they actually going to be forced to? I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. And it wouldn't even make logical sense. Like, fine, maybe the judge has a wackadoo decision. I don't think that's probable. But when you're talking about the violations here, it has to do with it's supposed to have to do with specific transactions, not assets held. That's like I haven't seen that. Now, there are other ways that would make more sense for the SEC to try and destroy companies, including disgorgement. That would make sense. If you're a asshat prick devil demon monster over at the SEC, then it makes sense. But disgorgement and fines, so on and so forth. But getting them to hand over an asset that is theirs, and especially in the case of Ripple when it's in escrow and they literally can't even move it. Like, what are you going to do? Like, literally give them the keys, and then so Ripple, there would be a time period where Ripple has the keys and the SEC has the same keys for this, and then that just sounds like a mess. I don't see that stuff happening. So fine, I'll acknowledge maybe I can get surprised, and there's some language like that from the SEC in the future about Ripple getting rid of that, but it just seems like completely different circumstances, and I'm going to hazard a guess here that it ain't going to happen, because it's never been the focus in this case. And in the case of the LBRY, it has been discussed for a span of years in the LBRY case. It's been offered. So the fact that the SEC is taking them up on the offer doesn't mean that they're going to try and demand some sort of similar action from Ripple, a completely unrelated case. So that's just the way that I'm looking at that. You guys can all tell me what you think. And then there was also, where was I going? Oh yeah, here. Oh wait, maybe that was the. Oh, actually, you know what? That was actually the. Yeah, okay, no, I think I highlighted everything that I wanted to highlight then. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and wrap up here then. But I don't know. These are just my opinions. I'm not perfectly right like any human is. I can be wrong here, but if you've got a perspective that is contrary to mine, if you can articulate why you think that I'm missing the mark here, that would be highly interesting to me, because I've spent literally over 2 years thinking through this. And so far, any argument I've seen to the contrary just hasn't really made a whole lot of sense to me. But if you've got an interesting take on this, yes, I would love to hear it, because I love thoughtful discussion and debate, so on and so forth. I think that's fun. So you let me know, but I'll wrap up here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.